Hi, I'm Kinsley. 6 years ago, I met the man I thought would be my forever. 3 years of marriage later, I discovered how wrong I was. But let me back up to where it all fell apart. Our anniversary party. You look stunning, Kins, my sister Mara said, adjusting my necklace as we stood in the hallway of the country club. 3 years with Richard. How does it feel? Like I'm playing a part in someone else's life, I replied. His mother's life, specifically. It's your anniversary, too, Mara said, squeezing my hand. You get a say. Tell that to the Preston Family Tradition Committee. I laughed, but it sounded hollow even to me. The evening started pleasantly enough. Champagne flowed. Richard's law firm partners congratulated us, and Elaine, my mother-in-law, paraded us around like prized show ponies. Kinsley, darling, Elaine's voice carried that sing-song quality that always preceded criticism. The centerpieces are lovely, but didn't we discuss using the silver candelabras instead? The florist recommended these for the space, I explained. Richard prefers traditional, she interrupted, patting my cheek. For next time, dear. I caught my friend Zoe's eye across the room. She raised an eyebrow, and I subtly shook my head. Not now. Later, as speeches wrapped up, I overheard Richard talking to his college friend, Marcus. Thinking about the partner track, Richard was saying. That's huge, Marcus replied. What about Kinsley's plans to go back to school? Richard laughed. That little pipe dream? We've discussed it. She knows her place is supporting my career, not playing student at 30. My stomach dropped. We hadn't discussed anything. He dismissed it outright when I brought it up last month. Excuse me? I said, stepping into view. Richard's face shifted immediately. Kinsley, there you are. I was just telling Marcus about our conversation. Which conversation would that be? The one where you said my education didn't matter because you make enough for both of us? Marcus looked uncomfortable. I should find Sarah. Stay, I said. I'm curious what else my husband has shared about our private life. Richard gripped my arm. You're embarrassing yourself. Let go of me, I said quietly. Let's take this somewhere private, he hissed, tightening his grip. I pulled away. No, I think I've had enough privacy with you. That's how you get away with this. His face darkened. With what exactly? Controlling every aspect of my life. Dismissing my goals, treating me like an accessory. You're drunk, he announced loudly. Several heads turned. I've had one glass all night. You know that. Elaine appeared beside us. Is everything all right? Kinsley's had too much champagne, Richard said smoothly. I haven't had too much champagne, I stated clearly. I've had enough of being treated like a child. Richard grabbed my wrist, pulling me toward the hallway. I resisted. Stop making a scene, he growled. Let me go. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Richard's face contorted with rage. He shoved me, hard. I stumbled backward, hitting the wall with enough force to knock the wind from my lungs. The room fell silent. Richard looked shocked at his own actions, but only for a moment. Then his expression smoothed over. Now look what you made me do. I stared at him, unable to form words. The most chilling part wasn't the physical pain. It was Elaine's face. As her son displayed his true colors, she smiled. A small, satisfied smile that said she'd known all along what he was capable of. She was proud. Zoe was suddenly beside me, helping me up. We're leaving, she said firmly. This is between my wife and me, Richard began. Not anymore, said a voice from the crowd. It was Lisa, Richard's colleague. I saw everything. You need to file a report, Lisa said the next morning. We sat in Zoe's kitchen. I've seen this before with clients. It only escalates. He's never done anything like that before, I said, though I realized that wasn't entirely true. There had been gripped arms, blocked doorways, thrown objects, just never in public. Hasn't he? Zoe challenged gently. The way you flinched when he raised his voice last Christmas? How you always check with him before making plans? He'll say I provoked him, I whispered. There were 30 witnesses, Lisa countered. I've already written down what I saw. My phone buzzed. 27 messages from Richard since last night. Mara arrived, dropping her purse on the counter. I went by your place to get clothes. His mother was there. What? Why would Elaine be at our house? Looking for you, said Richard is devastated, and this has all been blown out of proportion. Did she mention the part where she smiled when her son assaulted you? Zoe asked. My phone buzzed again. A text from my colleague, Derek. Elaine Preston just called the office looking for you. I didn't tell her anything. You okay? They're looking for me everywhere, I said, suddenly afraid. Which is why we need to make this official, Lisa insisted. A restraining order at minimum. He's a lawyer, I said. He knows people. So do I, Lisa replied. And unlike Richard, I specialize in family law and domestic violence cases. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Hello? I answered cautiously. Kinsley? It's Marcus, from the party. Richard's friend sounded uncomfortable. Look, I saw what happened. And it's not the first time I've seen Richard act that way. My heart raced. What do you mean? In college, he had a girlfriend before you. Things ended badly after well, it was similar to what happened last night. His parents covered it up. I put the phone on speaker. Marcus, would you be willing to tell that to the police? A pause. Richard's been my friend for 15 years. And how many women has he hurt in those 15 years? Lisa asked sharply. Another pause. I'll tell them what I know, he finally said. It's the right thing to do. A knock at the door made us all jump. Zoe checked the peephole. It's Officer Ramirez, she said. I called her this morning. The officer was compassionate but direct. Mrs. Preston, from what your friends have told me, you have grounds for both a police report and an emergency protective order. Will that stop him? I asked. It creates consequences if he tries to approach you, she explained. And it establishes a formal record of the incident. He'll be furious, I whispered. Officer Ramirez leaned forward. That's why we act quickly. Your safety is the priority. As I gave my statement, each word felt like breaking free from invisible chains. Years of subtle control, of Richard knows best, of disappearing pieces of myself to keep the peace. All of it crystallized into a moment of clarity. 3 days later, I stood in our home collecting essential documents while Officer Ramirez waited in the living room. The protective order had been granted, and Richard was staying at his parents' house. The doorbell rang. I froze, hearing Officer Ramirez answer it. Mrs. Preston cannot have visitors right now, she was saying. This is my son's home, came Elaine's imperious voice. And that's my daughter-in-law. I emerged from the study to find Elaine and Richard's father, Howard, in the entryway. Kinsley, Elaine said, her voice dripping with false concern. This has gone far enough. Richard is devastated. Ma'am, Officer Ramirez interjected, there's a protective order in place. Against Richard, not us, Howard said dismissively. We just want to talk some sense into her. I have nothing to say to either of you, I replied. Elaine stepped forward. You're throwing away a wonderful marriage over one little incident. Richard told us how you provoked him. Is that how he's spinning it? I asked. That I deserve to be thrown against a wall? No one is saying that, Howard cut in. But marriages have rough patches. Prestons don't air their dirty laundry in public. Prestons also don't face consequences, apparently, I observed. How many other women has Richard hurt while you looked the other way? Elaine blanched. That's a vicious accusation. Marcus told me about Richard's college girlfriend, the one you helped silence. Howard's face hardened. That girl was unstable. She would have ruined his future over nothing. Nothing? Like what he did to me was nothing? My voice rose. Let me guess. You paid her to go away? We protected our son, Elaine snapped. Just as we're trying to protect this marriage. This marriage is over, I stated flatly. And your protection ends now. You ungrateful! Elaine started forward, but Officer Ramirez stepped between us. That's enough, she said firmly. You need to leave immediately. We'll see what the judge says when he hears how you've manipulated this situation, Howard threatened. Richard's family has considerable influence in this town. Are you threatening to interfere with a legal proceeding? Officer Ramirez asked pointedly. Later that afternoon, as Lisa and I reviewed documents in her office, her assistant interrupted. Richard Preston is in the lobby, he said nervously. He's demanding to see you both. Lisa immediately dialed security, but before they arrived, Richard burst through the door. Kinsley, he said, his voice eerily calm. This has gone far enough. You're violating a protective order, Lisa warned, phone still in hand. I'm talking to my wife, he snapped. Kinsley, you've made your point. I've apologized. What more do you want? I met his gaze steadily. I want a divorce. His facade cracked. After everything I've done for you, I gave you a beautiful home, financial security, and bruises, I finished, and fear, and isolation. One mistake, he shouted, slamming his hand on Lisa's desk. One mistake and you're throwing away 3 years? The mistake was thinking I needed your permission to live my life, I replied. You're nothing without me, he hissed. Who do you think will want you now? Security is on their way up, Lisa's assistant called. Richard's eyes darted around, realizing he was cornered. This isn't over. You think you can humiliate me and walk away? My mother was right about you all along, just a gold-digging opportunist looking for a payout. Is that the story you're telling yourself? I asked calmly. Because the police report tells a different one. As security arrived, he made one last desperate grab for my arm. His fingers closed around my wrist, and in that moment, something in me snapped. Let go, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You're hurting me, again. 6 months later, I sat across from Lisa in the courtroom as the judge delivered his ruling. Despite Richard's family's attempts to minimize what happened, the evidence was overwhelming. Multiple witness statements, Officer Ramirez's documentation, the violation of the protective order at Lisa's office, and finally, reluctantly, Marcus's testimony about the pattern of behavior that stretched back to college. The court grants the divorce on grounds of cruelty, the judge announced. The protective order will remain in place for 2 years. Richard sat stone-faced beside his attorney. Elaine and Howard were conspicuously absent. Their influence had evaporated once Marcus and 2 other former acquaintances of Richard came forward with their stories. Outside the courtroom, Mara hugged me tightly. It's over. Almost, I said. I still have to see him for the final property settlement next month. You'll have us with you, Zoe assured me. Every step. That evening, our small support group gathered at Mara's house. Lisa raised her glass. To Kinsley's new beginning. And to consequences, Derek added. He'd become a steady friend through all of this, showing up with takeout on hard days and never pushing for more than I could give. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I knew before opening it who it would be from. We should talk privately. I'm truly sorry. Give me one chance to make this right. I showed Derek the message, then deleted it. Just Richard, trying one last time. Are you going to respond? Mara asked. No, I said firmly. His words mean nothing. His actions showed me everything I needed to know. Later, as people started to leave, Derek lingered. Can I ask you something? Sure, I said, helping clear the dishes. The community college is offering that architectural design course you talked about, the one you wanted to take before. Before Richard said it was a waste of time, I finished. Registration closes tomorrow. I picked up a form just in case. He slid it across the counter, no pressure in his gesture. I stared at the paper. I'd be the oldest one in the class. So? You'd also be the most determined. I thought about Richard's voice in my head, the one that had been getting quieter each day. You're nothing without me. I picked up a pen. I'd have to rearrange my work schedule. Your boss already said she's flexible, Mara called from the living room. I asked. 2 weeks later, I was leaving my first class when I quite literally ran into Elaine Preston outside the college building. Kinsley, she said, recovering quickly. I heard you were taking classes here. I clutched my textbooks tighter. What do you want, Elaine? To understand, she said, looking suddenly older. How could you destroy my son's life like this? His reputation, his career prospects? I didn't destroy anything, I replied. Richard did that himself when he chose violence instead of respect. He made a mistake. No, I made a mistake, staying as long as I did. Richard made a choice. I stepped around her. As did you when you smiled that night. She flinched. I didn't smile. We both know you did. You were proud of him for putting me in my place. I looked at her directly. What does that say about you as a mother? As a woman? For once, Elaine had no ready answer. Richard sent me, she finally admitted. He wants to meet, to apologize properly. Tell him my attorney handles all communication, I replied. And Elaine, don't contact me again. As I walked away, I felt the last invisible chain break. The woman who had entered that anniversary party 6 months ago would have second-guessed herself, would have considered giving Richard one more chance. That evening, I called Zoe. I saw Elaine today. What did she want? Zoe asked immediately. What they always want, another chance to manipulate the situation. And I realized something. For 3 years, I measured myself against impossible standards set by people who never valued me to begin with. I took a deep breath. I'm done living for their approval. The next day in class, I raised my hand to share my design concept, something I would never have done a year ago. Too afraid of being wrong, of being judged. Great perspective, Kinsley, my professor commented. As I gathered my things after class, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. I looked different somehow, stronger, more present. Hi, I'm Kinsley. I survived a marriage that nearly broke me. I stood up against people who thought their status placed them above consequences. And now I'm building something new, a life that belongs entirely to me. What would you do if you had to start over? Would you have the courage to walk away from everything familiar, even if staying meant losing yourself? I hope you would, because on the other side of that terrible choice is the person you were always meant to be.